Hello there, friends of Matthew. My name is Michael Weidel and I am a Swedish photography YouTuber who focuses mostly on macro photography. That is like my main thing that I love the most, but I love all kinds of photography. Another thing I like to do is to try to find the cheapest equipment available and make the most out of it. I find that a very fun challenge, and today I want to show you how you can take a very cheap vintage lens and make some beautiful macro photography with it. And we're going to explore how you can use an old cheap lens from the 70s and reverse it on extension tubes and do some focus stacking to yield very interesting photos.
This is the Minolta Rokkor 55mm f1.7. Probably my favorite vintage lens. I have used it for all kinds of photography, both normal photography and macro photography. And what is so great about it is that it has a beautiful bokeh, it is pretty sharp, it renders in a nice cool vintage way, it is small and lightweight, and maybe above all it is very cheap. You can find it for $35 to $40, I think. And it is pretty easy to find it. It was a pretty common lens in the 70s, and I've been using it a lot in my YouTube videos and in my projects. And today we're gonna use it to do some focus stacking. But for our experiment today, you can use any lens, any vintage lens. The only important thing is that it has an aperture wheel, so you can adjust the aperture manually. And as long as it is between 20 and maybe 60 millimeters in focal length, it will be a good lens to use. The reason we want to put it on backwards, reverse it, is because then you gain some magnification out of the box. You can do this with any lens. If you flip it, you will get a bigger image on your sensor. And if you put it further away from the sensor, the image will be even bigger and we will have more magnification. And that is the reason we're gonna use extension tubes as well. So an extension tube is basically just a tube that extends the distance between your lens and your sensor, and you use it for macro, and you can stack them together. They are very cheap. If you look on eBay or Amazon, you can find them for like $5, and they usually come in sets of 3. I have a bunch of extension tubes for Canon, so I'm gonna use these ones with an adapter on my Sony camera. And please note that you can use any camera for this experiment, doesn't matter what sensor size or brand or anything. To mount the lens on backwards, you need a reversing ring or a reverse adapter, and these are also very cheap. You just need to make sure that the front of your lens, the diameter there, corresponds with the diameter of your reverse adapter, and also that it is for the right mount, in this case Canon EF mount. And that way you can put the lens on reversed and we are ready to go. But we also need a mag slider. And I've gone with the cheapest one I could find today. It is a Velbon slider, and basically you put your camera on it and you can adjust the distance to your subject in small increments. For light I used my Godox LED light, but you can use a flash or daylight or basically any light source you want, but it's good to have plenty of light because it's better to have a fast shutter speed when you're doing this.
And Matthew asked me, please make the video Swedish in some way. So I thought I will only photograph very Swedish things. First of all, we have matches, safety matches invented by a Swede. Gonna photograph one of them, can be interesting when you photograph them up close. Then we have what we call in Sweden plockgodis or lösgodis, which is basically a bag of mixed candy that you can assemble yourself in the store, and then you pay by the kilo basically, even though I don't think it's healthy to buy several kilos. Then we have ballerina kex, every Swede's favorite cookies. And yeah, as you can see, they are really tasty because I bought them yesterday and I already eaten all except 2. And the only thing that stopped me from eating them was that I had to use them in this video. And then we have svenska pepparkaksfigurer, Swedish, what's it called? Cinnamon cookies, pepparkakor. Really tasty, and I don't know, could perhaps be interesting to photograph up close. We'll see. Oh, we have a monkey wrench. I heard somewhere that this is a Swedish invention, so let's try to photograph that. And we have Kalles caviar, Swedish caviar. This is also like a staple good in Sweden. Everyone eats it, and I think most people outside of Sweden probably find this very strange and to taste awful. Basically, you have to have a long upbringing where you get used to it to be able to like it, I think. And then last but not least, we have Swedish cars, bilar. And this is a kind of candy, can be interesting to photograph and very Swedish, of course. And let's see what kind of results we can get. And also I want to show you the whole focus stacking thing. So let's go.
Okay, let's get going. I'm gonna start with romersk båge, Roman arch, a Swedish candy that is quite popular. Begin with adjusting the distance to your subject so that you have the back in focus, the furthest away part, because that is basically what your framing will look like. As you can see, the depth of field is minuscule when you focus this closely, and that is why you do focus stacking. You take many shots and then put them together later in a software. So focus at the end, and then you just do these small increments and take a photo for each. You will have to experiment a bit in the beginning to find the right amount of increment between the shots so you don't miss any spots to have in focus. Then you need some kind of software to put all these photos together and to pick the sharpest parts of each photo so that you get a sharp end result. I prefer the software called Helicon Focus. It's available for Mac and PC, I think. And there is a competitor called Serene Stacker, which is also popular, but I prefer Helicon because I find it more intuitive to use and it can handle RAW files straight from the camera, which I think is convenient. And basically you can most of the time just use the default settings when you're doing the stack, just import the photos and press render, and in most cases you will end up with a pretty good result. And what is usually a challenge is if you have any parts of your photo that's kind of glaring or glowing, because that can upset other parts of the photo. But for a simple shot of something that's a bit matte like this is what you get with the default settings. The most common issue is that sometimes you can get some halos around things, but most of the time they are pretty easy to fix in Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever tool you like to use. When it comes to settings, I recommend you to start with an aperture of f4 or f5.6 because lenses tend to be the sharpest there, and that way you will not have too high risk of running into diffraction problems, which you will get otherwise at high magnifications. And shutter speed 1/80th or 100th of a second or faster is good, because otherwise you could have vibrations which messes it up. And ISO, go as low as you can get away with. The secret is to have plenty of light, and you can shoot at ISO 100 or 200 and you will get good results. This photo is kind of disgusting, by the way. This is the caviar. And here is the cinnamon cookie at really high magnification. I basically used all the extension tubes that I have, and yeah, here's the monkey wrench. If you want more similar videos, my YouTube channel happens to be filled with them, and I'm making new ones all the time, so go check it out. Thank you so much, Matthew, for featuring me on your channel. I am a big fan and I feel truly honored that you reached out. And the rest of you, see you around, I guess. Have a nice day and have fun with macro photography. Bye, over and out.